Sobriety Essays number 41. Love is action. Recently, a good friend of mine asked me, "Chuck, what is love?" Without hesitation, I answered, "Love is action. Love is action required by me to do something for someone else and not requiring or expecting anything in return." I'll explain how I arrived at this positive statement. Being a romantic from an early age, I read poems by Shakespeare, Brown, and Yeats, looking for a description of love. I have been married for 20 years and I was still looking for a concrete description of love. It was not until I got sober and began having experiences and working with others that I began to have a glimmer of love. The first real experience of love happened on one of the worst days of my life. I now consider it as one of the finest days of my life. I was 9 months sober and I still hated my job, my marriage, my boss, my life, and most of all, I hated me. Not being able to reach my sponsor and unable to find someone on the program to talk to, I ended up in a recovery ward of a hospital I went through 9 months earlier. The people in the hospital unit were able to get a hold of my sponsor. My sponsor came down to the hospital and he and I went into a little room to talk. To this day, I cannot remember what I said to him or what he said to me. For some reason, I had a moment of clarity. For some reason, I knew beyond a shadow of a doubt that that man loved me. He didn't want anything from me. He only wanted something for me. It was the first time I ever allowed somebody to love me. Married for 20 years, 16 of which were good years, and yet it was the first time I allowed somebody to love me. It is interesting to me that this occurred at a moment in my life when I could not love myself. Today I say that I learned more about love from a man than from a woman. Maybe sad, but true. My life changed 180 degrees that day. I could no longer live the way I'd been living, and I had to change. My sponsor told me to contribute to my marriage to the best of my ability. So if it did end, I could walk away with the least amount of guilt and the least amount of resentment. He says guilt and resentment would get me drunk. So I started to contribute to my marriage because I didn't want to get drunk. Coming home from a meeting a couple of weeks later, I had a thought go through my mind that I couldn't fix my marriage. That it was either going to work or it wasn't going to work, and it was God's business, not my business. I simply quit worrying about my marriage. All I can do is contribute to it. People ask me, how did I contribute to my marriage? I started to do things for my wife to please me instead of doing things for my wife to please her. This is what I call an attitude change. It worked. At 11 and a half months sober, my marriage did a 180-degree turn. I got an anniversary card for our 21st anniversary, and it was the first time in 5 years that my wife had even acknowledged our marriage. On October the 10th, 2014, we celebrated 50 years of marriage, and I am over 30 years sober. Love is action. When working with others, I have learned to give the most precious gift I have. I give my time. I give my time willingly because someone gave me their time. I have learned that sometimes the only action I can take is to listen. Sometimes just walking beside someone in pain is just the thing they need. To let someone know that no matter what goes on in their lives, they don't have to walk through it alone. When my wife's father died, I was there. I was sober. I just held her in my arms. Many have told me that love is caring. Yes, love is caring as long as I show the action to show it. Sitting in a room alone and caring does little to contribute to love. Tenderness is love. Kindness is love. As long as I take the action to show it. There is a line in a song that means a great deal to me. Don't talk about love, show me. A gift can be love if no expectations are attached. I learned this through my own experiences. Early in my marriage, we were poor. I saved my money and I bought my wife a crystal charm on a chain. She stuck her nose up in the air and said, "I only wear gold." I carried a resentment for years until I got sober. I learned that I had expectations. One Mother's Day in sobriety, I bought her a box of candy. She stuck her nose up in the air and said, "I only eat C's candy." Instead of getting a resentment, I ate the box of candy. It is my opinion that the biggest problem in a marriage or a relationship is that one or both are expecting the other to fill some void in their life. I believe that void is an inside job. Making a spouse or a girlfriend a higher power or their mother is placing unasked responsibility on another. It is important to me to love myself. I must first take care of me physically, emotionally, and spiritually before I can be of any help to others. I have learned that a relationship cannot be fixed. I have learned that a relationship cannot be made to work. Totally impossible. I have learned that all I can do is to contribute to that relationship to the best of my ability and have the willingness to change. Going to a marriage counselor is contributing. Going to a psychologist or a priest is contributing. If I can contribute to any relationship, be it a wife, friend, job, boss, whatever, to the best of my ability, I actually can turn over the outcome to my higher power. If it works, it is supposed to. If it doesn't, it isn't supposed to. As a result of this attitude, I have a wife who is my best friend. I have a job that I thoroughly enjoy and a boss that I am comfortable with most of the time. Love requires communication, intimacy, patience, and consideration, all of which are actions. It is important that I apply these actions towards me as well as applying them to others. These are things that I have learned and I do my best to apply in all areas of my life. Sure, sometimes I can do a poor job. Sometimes I say things I wish I hadn't said. Sometimes I have done things I wish I hadn't done. Because of this program of recovery, I learned to admit when I was wrong and have a willingness to change. I have learned that when I was wrong, it does not always mean that I have to explain myself or to try and justify my acts. I also have to separate anger from love. They are two different issues. I can love someone and still get angry. Sometimes I can have doubts. Am I really in love, or do I only think I'm in love? I believe that doubt breeds doubt. When I have a doubt, it is better to discuss them with my sponsor or in a meeting or with a friend and not with the person I'm emotionally involved with. That friend must be someone who loves me enough to not always agree with me. The guys I sponsor know that I'm willing to risk their friendship to tell them the truth. There are times when I don't have an answer and I say I don't have the answer. I let them know that I'm willing to walk beside them and seek the answer with them. This is a responsibility I have placed upon myself. In several places, I have mentioned the word expectations or having expectations. To have expectations is a human feeling and therefore it is impossible to have no expectations. It is important for me to lower the level of importance on my expectations. So it is my belief that love is action. It is an action required by me to do something for someone else and not wanting or expecting anything from that person. As always, I don't know if this writing will help someone. I do know that it helps me. Chuck 8, sobriety date April 19th, 1984.